Okay, right. What if your launch monitor could follow you out onto the real golf course, act like a digital caddy, telling you exactly what club to hit and your percentage chance of hitting the fairway or the green? Well, that's exactly what this app Noonan does. It takes your personal launch monitor data and applies it in real time to the course to help you manage your way around smarter. I tested it a few weeks ago and I made a full review video, but in today's live stream, I'm actually joined by the creators of Noonan. So they're here to answer all of the frequently asked questions about the app and even give you guys a chance to ask them anything about how it all works as well. So, guys, would you like to introduce yourselves, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll kick things off. So, Matt Williams, I'm the co-founder of Noonan. I'm really excited to be here. Mitch, obviously, great video. Really enjoyed it. You shot a really good round, so I'm pleased to see it worked to how we designed it. But I know there's a lot of questions about what it is that we're doing, how it kind of differs from some other apps. So I'm excited to be here and kind of talk about how we've approached this topic of course management and kind of automating that whole process and certainly share some things we've done recently around integrations with launch monitors.
Yeah, I love it. And then my name's Evan as well. I'm working in the marketing and partnerships here with Noonan as well, and kind of been helping trying to grow the the awareness of what we do here at Noonan. What our app is, all the features it has, and how it can really help your game. So kind of here to help co-host and really drive the ship here on this show. But Mitch, thanks so much for having us, and thanks for hosting us on the live.
No, thanks for coming on, guys. I appreciate it. So yeah, I tested out your app a few weeks ago now, and it pleasantly surprised me. I have to say, after being a little bit apprehensive at first, which when I spoke to you guys initially, I was telling you about that, weren't I? But yeah, if anybody's watched the video that I made, I actually shot like my lowest score ever at my home golf course, with a little bit of help from Noonan as well. And I thoroughly enjoyed the visual representation of the dispersion circles that it overlays onto the GPS map, and just having the percentages of like what your percentage chance is of going into the rough maybe, or hitting the fairway or hitting the green. I just thought it was a really cool feature, and yeah, I've really enjoyed using it.
Awesome. Well,
Great.
yeah,
I'm glad
I'm
to hear that.
excited that worked out well. I do understand the apprehensiveness. Frankly, when we got this project started, we looked at a lot of other AI caddy apps, and like it kind of always seemed like a feature, right? One of those kind of check the box type of things where, hey, we know your yardage to the hole, we know kind of the plays like. If you can kind of just tell us how far you generally hit your clubs, then we'll make a quote unquote club recommendation for you. But if you really think about it, that's kind of incomplete, right? A club recommendation is not a shot recommendation, right? In order for you to actually have a shot recommendation, you need the club, but also you need the aim point, right? If you're giving a club recommendation without a target aim line, frankly, that recommendation is going to change, especially like if you've got an angled green, for example. The shot that's going to be short right, is going to be a club versus a shot that's going to go long left. So all those things are very important. There's nothing else out there that we've seen that actually is automating that whole thing. Because the other challenge that we have is just you've got to make a lot of these decisions on the fly, and I don't think the golf industry has done a great job about educating folks on proper course management strategy, right? I've played golf ever since I was 8 years old, and I would say it hasn't been until the past couple of years that anybody's actually really talked about the proper way to make a shot, and how to think about, understanding your shots in terms of dispersion patterns and strokes gained and odds to hit different areas. Like, this is a relatively new concept. So to ask people to not only get better at their swing, but then to also kind of learn this whole world of course management, it's a lot to get going. So if there's ways that we can at least help automate some of those things and make it easier for beginner golfers to make proper shot recommendations and play at least the correct shot, well, now they can focus more on their swing than making some mistakes mentally.
Yeah, when I was using the app, and I think I mentioned it in the video, I said for myself, who plays off 8 and has their own launch monitor and kind of knows the yardages inside out, it was a nice little addition to have. But I think for somebody who's just started golf, or they're not too knowledgeable on course management strategies and even their own like personal data, I think it's such a good little well, it's a caddy, isn't it? It's a digital caddy. It's just a cool little tool to have, just to help you plot your way around the course and hopefully shoot better scores.
Yeah. Well, let me challenge you a little bit, right? Because there are even a few things that kind of surprised you, right? You know your yardages, you use a launch monitor, and still, when it comes to applying those things, frankly, it's just hard, right? I mean, you play a golf course you've played your entire life, presumably, or at least you play quite often. And you start to kind of see some lines based off of just a straight up percentage optimization standpoint that is not possible to do just by yourself, right? When you actually get into the app and you kind of look at it, you kind of showed it. You can actually change your aim line as, it starts out, it gives you basically what it recommends as the highest percentage shot, but you can change your aim line left and right. And every time you tap that, it's about a 5-yard difference. So if you move your aim line maybe just 5 to 10 yards away from the optimized zone, you can actually reduce your odds to hit the fairways and greens by, we've seen upwards of 25%. So that, if you think about it, like I'm standing 200 yards away and I'm talking about a 10-yard difference in aim of a landing spot. We're talking like fractions of a degree in change in aim line, but that makes that much of a difference. So even going to a course that you played a million times, revisiting that and saying, hey, am I picking the right club? Am I picking the right aim line? Because you may have it right 80, 90% of the time, but those, 10, 20% of the time where you're just not quite optimized, that's going to make a pretty significant difference shot after shot, time after time.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Go on, Evan, you go, Matt.
No, I was just gonna say that. I mean, I do think that's a really great point. Is that it seems like such small fractions of a difference that you might be making that shouldn't have that big of an impact on the result. But obviously, our data shows, and I think I'd love to turn people. I mean, for those that have seen the video, it's great. But I think one of our favorite moments from Mitch, your experience thus far is you're playing a par 3, and it's a course that you typically, I think you said, usually hit a 7, maybe an 8 iron, and Noonan recommended a 5 iron, which is vastly different. Obviously, I mean, multiple clubs different, and you kind of thought that you're like, all right, I'm going to trust it. This is something I'd probably typically blow over the green, but actually hit it to about 15 feet, which I'm not going to say that happens every time, but it is interesting, especially that's one of my favorite things about Noonan is it's not only helpful, especially in when you're playing a new course, right? Because it can help you plot your way around somewhere that you haven't seen before. But it's also incredibly intriguing on a place where you've played, all the time over and over, where you think all the shots, but let alone you might find yourself, getting a different recommendation in every single situation because it's taking into account, the wind, your elevation, things that you may not consider all the time.
Yeah, it's funny actually. I chuckled to myself then because I played my golf course yesterday. I took the 5 iron on that par 3 again. Again on the green, so I'm very happy with that little recommendation.
That's great.
From the app. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Not quite as close as last time, but it was on the green.
Sure.
I was happy. So
that's awesome.
Can we ask a few questions to you guys?
Let's do it.
Obviously, you guys get a lot of questions about the app, and I've had a few questions about it as well. So, obviously, you take your own launch monitor data and you can upload it into your app. Then it goes out onto the course with it and recommends what club to hit and stuff, like we said. How accurate are those recommendations, like the dispersion circles and stuff?
Yeah, great question. So I'll give you kind of a little baseline of like how it makes these decisions. So super transparent, there's no kind of, hidden LLM AI, component going in here where it's going to make different recommendations. It's fairly straightforward. So it's a probabilistic approach to shot recommendations. So When I say that, it's based in statistics. So when I upload, we recommend 10 shots per club. More data, the better. It's a bigger sample size, but 10 shots is a really good representation of your dispersion. And effectively what we're creating is a statistical representation of your dispersion pattern. So everybody who's used a launch monitor, they've probably seen the dispersion circles that get created. Those are not a statistical version of your dispersion. They're simply drawing kind of a circle of best fit around every single shot that you hit. The important thing to know, though, is the further you get outside of kind of that average, the less likely those shots are to happen, right? They're more likely to hit in the middle than they are on the outside. It's not to say they won't happen, but they are less likely. So when it comes to course management, you need to account for the likelihood as much as where those shots actually go. So when I start to kind of see some, systems like Decade and other things, what they effectively say is, hey, you should move your entire dispersion circle away from these penalty areas. When in reality, if you look at the math behind it, just because you may have a 1% chance to hit on the left side of your dispersion pattern doesn't mean you should completely remove that from happening, because by moving your dispersion pattern away from that penalty area entirely, you are obviously going to reduce your odds to hit the fairway and then replace that with a greater odds to hit maybe the rough on the opposite side. And when you analyze kind of the strokes gained and the probability where your shots will go, you're actually going to increase essentially the amount of the potential score that you're going to hit by doing that. So all that's to say, we take a much different approach to how we calculate this. So when you hit the recommend club button, Noonan will literally scan the hole. It looks at every single club and aim combination. It predicts where 95% of your shots will go and then calculates those odds to hit the fairway, bunker, penalty area, so on and so forth, based off of the statistics that are behind the data you supplemented. And then it decides, okay, this is the club and aim combo that gives me my highest odds for success, meaning the highest odds to either hit the fairway, the green, while also making sure that your odds to hit a bunker a penalty area is less than 5%. So if it finds that, hey, the highest odds at the fairway is, here, but you've got a 10% chance to hit the water on the left, it would move your dispersion pattern to the right enough so that it reduces it under 5%, or it may club you up and down. So that's how it makes decisions. In terms of accuracy, we've approached this a couple different ways. Obviously, it's a statistical program. So it's not binary. It's not like this is accurate or this is not accurate. It's all weighted based off of the likelihood that the shot will happen. So and that is obviously dependent on how much data you've actually uploaded as part of your sample set. So the more data, the more accurate the shot probabilities will be. The less data, obviously, the less accurate. But we've seen that when you actually do that, I've done this shot after shot. I played this entirely myself. It does a phenomenal job. And we actually did a research paper competition coming out here in the next few months. And we actually put it to a test. So a scientific test where we had collegiate golfers. One had qualified for the USAM 2 years in a row. And we had them play a set of shots with them making their own decisions about club and aim. And then we went back and replayed those same shots using the Noonan recommendations. And what we found, the data that we found, is Noonan actually improved the quality of the shots, meaning they actually improved the strokes gained to where those shots landed by upwards of 3 strokes. So that is kind of scientifically proven. Now, again, it's all probability. So, sometimes it may work better than others. But on average, it's going to ultimately improve the shot quality. So this isn't just us kind of, thinking something up. It was important for me. I'm an avid golfer. I don't generally like some of the AI Caddy's solutions out there because it just isn't good enough of quality for me. So we wanted to make sure that we took the steps to actually scientifically prove that this works, rather than just anecdotal evidence that, hey, I've shot this better. You had one round, frankly, better than others out there. I wouldn't call that scientific proof that this app works, right? You could have had a good day. So by doing it this way, we've actually proven that this actually does have better results than what most people do on a gut feel, even to the most elite levels.
Great. So I asked you guys a question, didn't I, when I used the app, and I gave you some feedback.
Yep.
And I said, I mean, I said with this being a golfer that isn't the most consistent. So like on a one day I might be carrying, I don't know, my 7-iron 165, and then the next day it might only be carrying 150 or something.
Sure.
And I said to you, I think in order for it to be accurate, I felt like I would need to do like a full bag mapping before the round that I was about to go out and play. And then you came up with a really interesting answer for me, didn't you?
Yeah,
Did you
yeah.
disagree?
So I, I somewhat disagree, right? I think it depends on the data you get into the system, right? This is a true garbage in, garbage out type of situation. So if you only upload like a few shots to begin with, and then you go out and play a different day, yeah, you may have a different outcome from those shots. But in general, when you upload a good kind of sample set, we're looking at the variance. We're looking at how big is your miss effectively, and that actually doesn't change that often based off of different sessions, right? Now, over going from one year maybe to the next year, yeah, you may go through an entire swing change, you may change clubs, all those things 100%. But if you're going from one week to the next, as long as you've captured a good sample set, that's all we're looking for, right? Because I'm not looking at your historical shots. I'm not saying, hey, let's plot every single historical shot that you hit the last time you played this course, and let's see where those went, and then use that as the basis of making our recommendations. We are saying, hey, take that sample set that you uploaded. Let's look at what statistics says is where your shots are likely to happen based off of kind of your skill level. And we use that to make those recommendations. So you may on one day hit your shots a little bit lower on the probability spectrum, whereas the next day you may hit it a little bit, longer on the probability. The average is still the same, right? So the best example I can give you is let's flip a coin, 10 times. Just because the coin ends up heads 10 times in a row, does that change the probability that it's going to be heads that 11th time, right? And the answer is no. It's still a 50-50 shot. So as long as you have enough sample set, then, just because you hit your clubs longer one day, 10 times in a row, doesn't mean that actually changed the statistical likelihood that your next shot will go a different distance.
Yeah, excellent. I remember now. I remember you on Caddy. It made a lot of sense to me at the time. Yeah, so cheers for that. So I used the Square Golf Launch Monitor to upload my data, because what I really like about Noonan is it's not just confined to a specific brand or a certain launch monitor. It's any launch monitor you've got, as long as you can export the data, you can upload it to Noonan. And that was the one thing that really appealed to me about the app. So you now have some official integrations, I believe. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been important to us to actually integrate this into launch monitors. So, we've only been at this for, just a couple months. So I think we launched it officially end of May. So this kind of summer has been really our testing. We've been learning what works, what doesn't work, what friction points are there in the app experience, and obviously getting data into the system. If it's manual at all, it does create a little bit of friction. So as it sits today, you can upload any data regardless of the launch monitor or the simulation software that you use. So every single one has its own way to export the data. Most are a CSV. You can even take pictures of the data from a TrackMan app and upload it that way. So lots of different ways to get it into the system, but we wanted it even easier than that. We thought, why can't I just link up my account? If I've got a Garmin account, why couldn't that just sync the data over automatically? And the answer is it's very much dependent on the launch monitor manufacturers and systems. Some of them have APIs to allow that access. Some of them restrict that. Obviously, we believe that it's your data. Why would you restrict people from using it if they so choose? So luckily, Garmin was the first one that we partnered with that is looking to partner with kind of third-party apps, because they realize their hardware is generating really good information. They couldn't possibly, from a software side, stay up to date with every single use of that data that golfers are going to want. So they decided it'd be better to partner with outside organizations, create kind of a rev share agreement, and let them develop those user experiences and essentially take the data and turn them into insights.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love that, Matt. I think it's a really good point, and just making sure. And obviously, we're very fortunate to be partnered with Garmin and kind of, helping us kind of lead the way in that, automatic integration, right? Because then, at least from our user experience, it just eliminates a step, right? And not that the data upload process is strenuous by any means, but it is something else that you have to do to make sure your Noonan app experience is optimized. But Garmin, very, very fortunate to have that partnership and that integration. And now then, like you said, right away, you already skipped that step entirely. So if you have that Garmin data preloaded and you link those accounts, then you're set and ready to go, the second that you download Noonan and, you link those accounts. That way there's no extra step. It's just ready to go. You're ready to play that first day. So definitely a great partnership there. And kind of speaking in, with other brands as well, I think we've got a question in the chat, and it kind of leads into our next, question we had on the script here. And I'll kind of lead this to you, Matt, but can you explain, how our app is different from, some of the other popular GPS, digital caddy apps,
Yeah.
AI caddy apps, 18 birdies, one of the questions in the chat was asking about Shot Sense Golf. I think there's a good variety of them out there, but definitely, can we give the users a little bit more as to why Noonan stands out from those?
For sure. I think it kind of depends on what the use case is, for example, right? So from a use case standpoint, when I look at your traditional GPS apps, they effectively replace a rangefinder, right? You get better information, right? I can see obviously front, middle, back numbers. I can, drag that little cursor around and kind of see distances to different objects. That is all really good data that would be very, very difficult to do on a rangefinder. Rangefinder, of course, is potentially more convenient because I don't need to get out my phone. But for me, that's the main use case, right? It's really just kind of seeing those different distances, maybe recording some scores, maybe tracking some stats, all good stuff from kind of a whether you're trying to just understand what the yardage is, or maybe you're kind of tracking what you need to improve on later on. Great tools for that. Where we focus is more on specifically that proactive shot recommendation. So I would not encourage people to kind of compare it to like an 18 birdies. I think it's very different from that, because in order for you to actually get the best experience, you have to start using those recommendations. We have developed this with two particle physicists to help us develop kind of the back end AI algorithm that is able to understand the statistical variances and understand how to integrate GPS data from a golf course in order to make these recommendations. So from an accuracy standpoint, when I think about what it is we're trying to do on a golf course, ultimately every single shot comes down to two questions, right? It's what club do I hit and where do I aim, right? Fundamentally, like that's what you have to kind of come down to. So every other tool and system that I've seen out there are inputs. It's data inputs, right? It's not insight. It's not telling me what to do. It's giving me information for me to make the decision myself. Whereas Noonan is taking all of that data that you're getting from the existing solutions and then deciding, okay, this is the club and aim you need to hit to give yourself the best odds for success. And I play this exclusively. Like name one other tool out there where you could literally take that exact recommendation and go out and play and completely replace a rangefinder or any kind of mental decision making that you're doing out there. And I would challenge that. That would be very hard to go do. I certainly would feel uncomfortable doing it, but I have done that myself with our own app. I mean, rightfully, like I created the darn thing, so like I better be drinking my own Kool-Aid. But I'm a scratch golfer, and I use that exclusively. What's interesting, it's a really freeing experience to kind of take all of that thinking that you have out of the equation. All you have to do is focus on swinging, because you know that the app is giving you the quote unquote highest percentage shot. So all I have to worry about is swinging the club. So yeah, I think it's almost like this different category of proactive shot recommendations versus maybe reactive like stats tracking slash, just kind of like, commoditized GPS information of a golf course. It's a different use case, and it kind of comes down to like, what are you looking for? And I want to encourage people to try out kind of what it feels like to actually have a solution out there that's actually making recommendations for me, so I can kind of free up my mind and just worry about, visualizing the shot and hitting it. Feel free to challenge, right? I mean, this is kind of one of those. It's like, this is a really important question. So if there's follow-on questions, happy to address them. And yeah, let's embrace debate here.
Yeah. So what I was going to do, Matt, I was going to ask you, so when I tested the app and I made the video, I made a few notes of like things that I would like to see potentially in the app. And so Evan mentioned 18 birdies there. So I use 18 birdies. I've used it for the last few years, and I really like it. And one thing that I noticed with Noonan that I wish that we could just access our scorecard at the end of the round, like you can on 18 birdies, because it's great. It saves data. It saves all your data and stuff, does the Noonan app. But then after my round, I was like, I want to just go back and look at my scorecard and see what I shot or didn't hold and stuff.
Right.
And So I think you were planning on potentially introducing that at some point, were you?
Yeah, we're planning on doing that. That was unfortunate consequence of us focusing a lot more on kind of the recommendations and maybe not like the post round kind of scoring. We do have the scorecard. We do have the ability to kind of track some very basic stats, but obviously the focus is more on the recommendations. And this is kind of one of those learning experiences. Once we kind of looked back and said, that was maybe a feature that should have been there that wasn't. So definitely something that we're adding kind of over the winter here.
Yeah, no, and Matt, I think that's a great point. Like, I think that is, that kind of difference in what we're trying to do is focusing on the on-course experience and the almost, if you will, the in-game, use of our app and how it's going to help you on the golf course. Not considering more of the external, post round stats, right? Because to us, this is going to help you play better golf on the golf course. We're not trying to give you something that you need to be, analyzing after, like, oh man, I hit, only 40% fairways today. I need to really focus on my teeing game or anything like that. Like, our hope is that our app is going to, Noonan's going to help you so much that you're able to focus entirely on the in-round changes that you have to make, right? The decisions that you're making around the golf course, and that's more your focus as opposed to, something to go work on the range or anything like that after the round. So I think I'll actually kind of transition a little bit. I'll loop this into the next question, because I think, Matt, obviously scratch golfer, you play a lot of golf, you obviously have a very great game. Someone like me and Mitch, I think, we're kind of in that same category of, I'm playing off of like a 10.9 right now myself. And personally, I still find it incredibly useful, right? And so I think that, if you could add a little more clarity as to why, even if, how useful can this app be as, in comparison to someone with a really small dispersion circle, right? Like, you're going to feel more confident that, I'm going to hit my shots within that small dispersion circle. But some other players, myself, Mitch, might look at that massive dispersion circle and, be far more concerned, right? If that could go anywhere in that space, right? So how can this be useful for someone like, players like us that maybe are a little bit more of an amateur level, don't play as often, those kinds of things?
Yeah, for sure. So this may break stuff. Do we think we could do a screen share? I can just I think a visual might be good.
Give it a go, mate.
Let's give it a shot.
There we go.
All right, here we go. Beautiful.
Cool. Okay. So to answer your question, here's the cool thing, right? Because I understand this thought, and frankly, like, I was a little bit concerned, like, how would this actually translate for maybe a golfer with a massive dispersion pattern? So again, it's statistics, right? We're not necessarily trying to like fit like this circle in between like hazards, which obviously if we were to try to do that, that would be maybe impossible for some people. And I think that's where a lot of people sit there and are like, well, I know my dispersion is this massive circle, so like, who cares, right? It's never going to fit. I just got to worry about, I guess, maybe focus on hitting and just getting it smaller. And that's actually not the case, right? So again, this is the app, and when I basically hit that recommend club button, it does its calculation, scans the hole, looks at every club and name combination, calculates your odds to hit each area of the golf course, and then recommends the best combo here. And you can see here that the red circle is a prediction of where 95% of my shots will land. The blue circle is a prediction of where 68% of my shots will land. Any statistics nerds out there, I mean, it's 1 standard deviation, 2 standard deviation. And we get the target aim line, right? So the target aim line is what you were trying to hit in the sim. I have a tendency to draw my driver. So my shots tend to land left of my target aim. And then I get all my shot odds over here on the right. And when I kind of move this, right, I'm seeing the changes in my shot odds based off of the aim. So if I were to move this over to the right by about 10 yards, I've dropped my odds to hit the fairway by about 12%. Now, in many cases, I think I often do kind of aim at that right edge of the bunker because it's a nice landmark. But what you have to then do is when you actually look at the math here and how Noonan shows it is it actually shows that you should be slightly left of it. And that does make a pretty decent difference. Actually, it's more like 14%. So that's significant. Now, what's great here is like it really doesn't matter how big that circle is, right? Because it's all percentage based. So just because it says if I were to hit this club, I have an optimal chance of hitting the fairway 66% of the time. Evan, you may only have a percentage to hit 34%. But when you change your aim, right, instead of being 34%, it may drop to 15% by moving it left to right. Sure. So regardless, right, it's still saying what your highest percentage shot is. It just may not be as high as a professional. And that's fine, right? It doesn't change the fact that it's still your highest percentage shot. And in fact, it probably gives you maybe a little bit of sense of confidence knowing that, look, from an expectation management standpoint, you're only going to hit the fairway 34% of the time. That's just the game that you have. So rather than getting upset that you flared it off to the right, you can accept the fact that hey, that was 1 in 3. I'm gonna get it the next one, or I'm gonna get it the one of the next 3. So it really doesn't matter the skill level. It's all about playing that high percentage shot based on the game that you have, the game that you brought to the course.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that point that this is not another training aid. It's not, another practice session. It's not something to go work on. It's something to take, what you have, currently in your game and how to go apply it, and really try and get the best out of it, get the most out of the game that you brought. And I think that talks a little bit on the value, point of the app as well. I think a lot of people, might see the price as something that turns them away. But Matt, if you can really, kind of in your, I know you've got a bit of a sales background, give us kind of your, hey, this is your sales punch on why our app's worth it and what, how much that's going to help your game and why that price is worth it.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, it's definitely not, the cheapest app out there. It's not the most expensive either. I think it sits very well kind of in that spot for what we're trying to do. And again, if you're looking at this for a replacement to a GPS app, an 18 birdies hole 19, I mean, yeah, I can't justify that price. But if you think about it in terms of like a game improvement tool, something that's actually going to help automate course management, this is very much an affordable solution, right? I mean, for the price of essentially having a caddy for a single round, you get one for the entire year. And I would argue this probably gives you a little bit better personalized insights into where you should be hitting, how you should be thinking about shots than, a typical caddy would. Now, there's obviously great caddies there. They're going to help you read putts, all that other good stuff. But you understand what I'm saying is it's giving you kind of that day in, day out, shot after shot recommendation, especially during those high pressure situations where you've got a lot of money in the line. You've been pressed a couple times, and your friend maybe just hit it into a bunker, and now it's time for you to step up and hit the shot. Best thing you can do is play the highest percentage shot, right? Don't worry about trying to stuff it really close. At the end of the day, you may actually hit yourself in a worse position than you would by understanding what your highest percentage play would be and putting the pressure on them. So when you think about it that way, it's a really great tool. You can think about all the things you could go out and buy to quote unquote help you shoot lower scores, because that's the goal at the end of the day. At the end of every round, everyone asks you, what score did you hit? And, that's kind of the most important factor. And you could go buy $700 driver, not going to necessarily help you shoot lower scores. Get a whole new set of clubs for $2,000, not going to help you shoot lower scores. But for $200, we have scientifically proven this could help you shoot lower scores.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, especially on the on the from the perspective of any level of player, right? Kind of like what we were talking about last with the different dispersion circles and things like that. You know, like you said, Matt, we've scientifically proven that really any player at any level is going to improve from utilizing these shot recommendations and taking our recommendations into their course management strategy, which is super super key. So I love that. Thank you. Thanks for adding a little bit there. And we've got one more question in the chat here. Are there any other simulators that we're looking that we've reached out to that are similar to Garmin that are looking to link up and integrate with Noonan? And any kind of updates there? Have we been in touch with anyone, Matt? Kind of help lead into what the next steps might be in that, and especially in that data upload process.
Yeah, we've reached out to just about every single one of them. I can say there's a couple out there that are very interested in creating these APIs. Unfortunately, some are under NDA, so I can't name a couple of those specifically. I would say, but it is split, right? And this is a little bit of the challenge where some of these simulator companies they maybe have plans to roll out a tool like this themselves, or they see their data as kind of this asset that they're trying to maintain. And it becomes a little bit of a challenge to work with that. We're trying to work with every single one of them. We're trying to create, very favorable rev share agreements where, we're compensating for that. But it ultimately comes down to the similar companies. So I'm hopeful that, through a couple additional integration points, we'll have effectively, direct integration for maybe 50% of the entire golf simulator community. So you could probably surmise like what systems we would need to go do to go do that. But that is 100% the goal. And we're trying to push these companies to be a little bit more open with it. So, if you want to ping them, whoever you like, and say, hey, I'd like to have direct integration, let's put a little pressure on them. But in the meantime, it doesn't stop you from using this tool, right? Just because we can't automatically sync the data, you can literally export your sessions in a minute and upload it, and it takes less than a couple of minutes. So don't let that stop you. But yeah, I would love to create the integration so that everybody could take their historical data and upload it seamlessly, just like we did for Garmin.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really exciting to see kind of the direction that a lot of this is going, and what can be coming down the pipeline for us, which is great. Really briefly, I did want to kind of add, we're going to put down in the description below on this YouTube channel, you have an app to download a link to download Noonan, and we'll have our website as well if you want to learn more about the app via the website. We've got some details on our Instagram as well. You can follow along on our social media, and kind of keep track there of any new updates, things like that. Can subscribe to our newsletter, all those things. And then also we'll have some contact information as well if anyone has direct questions, outreach, that kind of thing. So yeah, we'll get everybody squared away there. But I appreciate the engagement from everybody. Mitch, thanks for bringing such a great fan base for us to engage with today.
Oh mate, honestly, thank you for jumping on. Like I've said to you numerous times, I do really like the app. I'm very much a visual learner. So for me to just not be told where to hit my shot, but to see where the best place is to hit your shot and your percentage chance, I really like that. So yeah, great app, guys. Really good. Like I said, that you can integrate it with any launch monitor. Obviously, you've got some official integrations now, which is fantastic. But no matter what device you've got, then you can just, in literally, Matt said it was 2 minutes. I reckon it's quicker than 2 minutes to upload all your data. You can just quickly download a CSV file, get it onto your phone, get it into the app, and you're away. And there's no messing about. So yeah, thank you very much for coming on, guys. I think we've got one more question in the chat here. What new features are coming up in Noonan?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're working hard right now. There's a couple key areas that we're trying to focus on. One is the plays like integration. So If you click this on now, if you get the latest update, we do change the distances based off of wind, temperature, elevation. We haven't integrated that yet into the actual shot itself. So very shortly here, we will actually be able to say, hey, your dispersion pattern is going to change based off of the conditions that you're playing in. What's interesting is it doesn't just change like the distance your dispersion is, like, vertically. It actually changes like the orientation of your dispersion. So you can imagine I've got this kind of rotated 45-degree dispersion. If I wind coming this way, it's actually going to rotate it a little bit, which is obviously going to impact your shot odds. Or if it's coming straight into you, it might flatten it. So those things we've been really conscious. We wanted to make sure that we, really truly are kind of predicting where those shots would go, and that's why it's taken a little bit longer. But yeah, within a few weeks we'll be able to roll that feature out, which will be great, for more realistic predictions when you've got non-normal weather conditions and variables that you got to account for. The other kind of main focus, especially as we get into this off season, we're based here in Kid City, so pretty soon here most people will be playing indoors and not outdoors anymore. And we've got some great practice modes to be able to upload your data and actually see if you're getting better. So this is kind of one of those things that we love some feedback on from the audience. But if you think about it, the kind of the feedback loop that you get when you practice to seeing whether or not you're getting better is really, really long. Right? If I go and get a swing lesson, I may go play a few rounds before I really realize did my scores ultimately get better? And there's a way that I think we can, take that feedback loop and make it much shorter. If you think about it, really the best kind of predictor of shooting a good score is having a smaller dispersion pattern. And so effectively what we'll be launching is a feature where you can upload your latest shot data and it will actually determine, did your dispersion get better or did it get worse through this kind of scoring mechanism that we call effectively your birdie score. So this birdie score is effectively telling you, am I getting a better chance to kind of get it closer to the middle of the green, or am I getting a worse chance? So after every swing lesson, after every practice session, start uploading it to Noonan to be able to see, did my dispersion get better or worse, so that you can start to see, okay, did at least my potential to score get better or worse? And I think that's the really important thing when you start thinking about improvements during this off season and coming and hitting next season really strong.
I was going to ask you about this, Matt, actually, about the elevation stuff, because my whole course, it's got quite a lot of elevation change in it. And I mentioned it to you in the past about, I think the app, in my opinion, would work great if you're playing on a flat course. But then when I was playing on my course where I've got very high uphill approach or a really downhill tee shot, the app didn't, what's the word? It didn't account for
adjust,
those elevations. It didn't adjust. So to hear that that's coming up, I think that's an amazing feature. Because obviously hitting uphill, you're not going to carry it as far. Hitting downhill, you are going to carry it a little bit further, or total's going to go out further. So yeah, to hear that is upcoming, mate, I'm quite excited about that.
Yeah, I'm with you, right? I would actually more say that, it's not like completely automated shot recommendations. Like, we don't completely take the user out of this. I liken it more to maybe like a co-pilot, right? It's giving you a really good kind of baseline recommendation. But if there are, really unique situations, you may need to account for that. So maybe this doesn't quite go, all the way, because this is a really uphill shot. Maybe it doesn't go all the way. So you should really account for that and make sure that you're, taking enough club in that situation, or take a little bit off of it if you're in a really downhill situation. But at least you get kind of an understanding of like, this is where most of your shots would go under really flat conditions, so that you don't maybe overcompensate or undercompensate based off of what you think your shots will do. Because I can tell you, when I've had like really stiff crosswind, if this is my most optimal aim line, like I may aim like way over here thinking that I'm going to reduce my, or like that's how much the wind is going to affect it. But in reality, like, it doesn't impact it that much. So it kind of just makes sure that you're a little bit more precise with how you're adjusting for those elements. And like I said, pretty soon here, we'll have the weather elements that are incorporated into this, where it'll actually adjust your aim line for crosswinds. It'll actually adjust your dispersion circles for where your shots will likely go based off of the current conditions.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I think the only thing that I kind of wish Noonan was able to do was like I found it great off the tee. I found it great for like your longer approach shots. But just like when you're inside 100 yards or 50 yards or something, it obviously it doesn't have the data for a little half swing or a three-quarter swing. Or so I mean, I'd love that to be a feature at some point. I've no idea whether you've got that coming up in the pipeline or not.
Yeah, that is something else that we're conscious of. I'll be vulnerable here, right? So the reason why that's a little bit of a challenge is we actually do so many calculations. So you can think about it: 13 clubs in your bag. We analyze every single club and aim combination effectively possible, and we calculate your odds to hit every area of the golf course for each one of those club and aim combinations. So those are quite literally thousands of calculations that we're trying to do within less than 10 seconds to make that user experience really nice. The more clubs we add to that, or effectively the more shots that we add to that, increases the processing time that we have to go. So we have to be kind of creative in how we deploy that. But that's the limitation that we're dealing with. And I think we've got some creative solutions to get around it, because I would 100% love to have those quarter shots. So if you are practicing your 40-yard shot, like that should be the one that we are, recommending for, a very sub like half shot type situation. Or, put differently, we've also had people ask for like, well, what if I like to shape the ball? So I may have a shot where I hit a fade, and I may have a shot where I hit a draw, and I may have a straight shot. So being able to kind of see what those look like, how those dispersions fit into each shot would be helpful too. Again, each one is effectively kind of this like new club that we got to do a bunch of calculations for, but I think there's some UI components that we could probably do to make sure that processing time doesn't take like a minute every single time I hit the club recommendation. So it's a great suggestion, and those are the suggestions that we want. I would love if there's a lot of people that want that. We can certainly move that up in the roadmap.
Brilliant. I think it was one more question. Can Noonan have a 3D satellite map feature?
I think we could. We need some more users, unfortunately. So again, one of those things, like for us to go map it, that would be a big challenge, but there's services out there that do provide 3D mapping, and we're not quite at that like level that has that. So I mean, frankly, like I would love to understand like what that might look like. How cool. I've seen some tools out there that are starting to like get into that, especially like in virtual realities type situations. So I would love to do it. So yeah, if there's a strong use case, I'd love to chat about it, and I'm here, right? We'll put my contact information in the chat, or like feel free to reach out to me on my website, and I'm happy to chat with y'all, because these are all the cool things I'd love to go do, especially if it helps people in their game.
Very good. Evan, have you got anything else, buddy, to add?
No, I think I'm good there. Matt, thanks for driving the ship here. Mitch, thanks for having us as always, and really appreciate all the engagement. Great questions. This was good stuff. Love going through this and talking about it, and just really showing kind of the use cases as to why it's different, and what what really the big emphasis, or what the big emphasis is from our perspective on how to kind of make your game better. So Mitch, really appreciate you having us. Thanks so much for hosting. Like Matt said, we'll get all that information into the video description so that everybody has access to all those different links and stuff if they want to reach out, follow along with our journey, download the app, kind of go through. We've got a YouTube series on step-by-step how to get started. So if you have any questions there, you can kind of find some good content on how to work through it. And again, thanks so much, Mitch, for having us.
Not a problem, guys. Thank you for coming on, and thanks for explaining in detail and answering the questions and stuff. Guys, like I said, I've used this app. I really like it. It just gives you another option out on the course, and like genuinely, when I used it, it surprised me how much I actually liked it. Because like I said before, I was a bit apprehensive at first, and I was like, I use 18 birdies, why do I need a digital caddy, But yeah, if you've got a launch monitor, well, even if you don't have a launch monitor, you can go to a driving range that's got Trackman driving range or whatever. You can export your data, you can upload it into the app, and away you go. It's a really cool app. Definitely worth a try. Do you guys have a 7-day free trial?
Yeah, absolutely. So give it a try. 7-day free trial. Cancel anytime during that period. So yeah, I would love to give it a shot. I would highly encourage you to upload your data when you do it. So if you want to wait to initiate the 7-day free trial until after you get your data, you can absolutely do that. So you can kind of time it accordingly. But yeah, there's no risk.
Superb. So yeah, like Evan said, we'll pop all the links and stuff down in the description. Thank you very much for watching, the people that have been watching live. Obviously, we'll leave this recording up on the channel as well. So if anybody's watching it at a later date, hopefully it helps you out. And yeah, head over to the links in the description. Check out Noonan. And Matt, Evan, thank you very much for joining us. And if you've got any other questions, just pop them in the comments, and we'll get these guys to answer them for you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
We'll see you.